Everybody, it's Marty, the JavaScript party, and just me. Rhett is out in the living room. I have my Roomba. It's not a Roomba; it's a Eufy vacuum out there cleaning the floor, so that keeps Rhett nice and occupied. Also, my wife is cooking Easter dinner right now, so that's keeping her occupied. And my wife is watching Netflix right now. She's watching some kind of detective story where like lots of scene changes and lots of people being really emotional and all that. And Rhett loves those sorts of shows. I think she would have really enjoyed like the 80s styles um, soap operas and stuff like that. Anything where people yell at each other a lot and all that. She's quite the emotional creature. Very passionate, emotional entity. Um, So I am working on unit tests. I mean, what's new, right? Why not? And I've told it to focus on the geometry service unit tests, and it turns out the geometry service unit tests don't really test anything. Yesterday we learned when we were working on the camera service unit test, it's actually quite easy to set these up. Um, you know, Probably from scratch, like if I was just learning unit tests, it wouldn't be quite easy, but it is quite easy now that we've gone down this path a few times. I think we have probably like six more or whatever. I'm hoping to be able to knock out two set, two sets of files today. Since yesterday we got one and then kind of came up with a scheme, today we want. So we have an it function. Every it maps to a specification, and every specification is a test. And so it should create a base geometry. We want to prove that it creates a base geometry. Now, I've gotten good at those words, right? Like that is, I guess, what they would call these days a controlling the narrative. Yes, it's a narrative. I'm controlling the narrative here. And I'm saying, hey, I want to create a base geometry. I honestly, I was just writing tests. I was trying to get coverage. And now, while I was trying to get coverage, I managed to create a narrative that makes me sound smart. And so that's always a good thing. So for this specification, this it function, it takes two arguments, and the first argument is a description, which is just a plain string, and is intended to describe the test. And then the second one is a callback, and the callback is the thing that should actually write code that actually creates an expectation, or and another name for an expectation is an assertion, and then test to see if the results are as expected. So a create base geometry will return a number, and that number corresponds to the ID. I'm going to call this thing geometry ID, and I'm going to say service. And in all of these files, service, if there are four services, service is the thing that's being actually tested. And I'm going to say create basic geometry. And it doesn't look like it needs anything. And what it will do, it should return the ID of the geometry. So that ID you can see is this guy right here. So it's going to generate a new ID, and it's going to a unique ID throughout this entire system, and it's going to assign it here. So now I would like to actually get a instance of the geometry. So I'm going to say const, and then I'm going to say geometry, and I'm going to say st geometry, and it is of type st geometry, which I do not actually have imported at this point, although I think it did just now on line 4 for me. And that is equal to service, which is the service, the st geometry service, dot get geometry by ID, and I can pass it the geometry ID from above. Boom. I feel like I start talking in that sort of robotic way whenever I feel very confident. That's sort of an indication that I feel super confident. I think it is super annoying. But there we go. 100. Got hundreds all the way across. So I guess we should now test that our geometry. So we're going to give it an expect function, and we are going to assert that our ST geometry's geometry ID is equal to the geometry ID to be equal. To be equal. To equal. So the question is to be or not to be? It's not to be, it's just to equal. I don't understand why, like, I guess to greater doesn't make sense. I guess that makes sense. To equal the geometry ID. Now what we would like to see is our 2 tests pass. We would like to come over here and where is it? We would like to look at this thing here, and we want to see our 2 dark green with no muted green. So now what we would also like to see is that if we undo this, and it makes no sense at all that undoing this would cause anything to break, but I've seen it happen. So sometimes the way Jasmine or Karma, I'm not sure whichever one, the way it manages memory, sometimes running things can break other things. So there's like a scoping issue that I don't really understand that I feel like is screwy, but I honestly don't understand it well enough to confidently say that I think it's screwy. So we're still at 100%. Everything is still passing. We are all greens all the way across, no muted greens, and we are good in the neighborhood. All right, so now let's go to materials, do the same thing. How long are we into this? 7 minutes, 26 seconds. That ain't bad. So I think the first unit tests were taking like 40 minutes, 35 minutes, and not even getting done, and now we're down to like 7:30. So this is what they call velocity improvement in Agile. Now, all this velocity, momentum, and all that will all collapse as soon as we get out of this ST section. I believe when we get into the 3 section, we'll be right back to grinding again and trying to figure things out. But anyways, we'll worry about that when that day comes. We will add the F there. Sometimes it rebuilds, it runs itself. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you have to go to that page and reload it. Looks like I have to go to the page and reload it. So we'll reload. And we got 2. Did I do the right one? Material. Now let's come back over here. Oh, so material is 100%. So, well, that's one way to get some things. And I guess it's because, oh, so we were doing the same thing in here. We actually built it out. We've already done material. So material is done. So let's go to mesh. I guess I need to, let me hit the little back button. So it looks like we might knock out 3 today. That would be nice. I would love to be done with unit tests and then just double check that the end-to-end test works, which I think it will, and then initiate the resizing, and I think that will be neat. And if it's cool enough, I'll probably make another little video. I don't know. At some point, I want to make a video, put it on LinkedIn in hopes of maybe getting a QA job somewhere. I feel like I would be way more useful as a QA than as a developer. I think as a developer, I move, I don't know, this is going to sound crazy, but I think I move faster than the BAs can present. Like, there's limits, right? Like, a BA needs to present things and needs to run things, make sure everything works right. But, like, they can only get access to the customer so much. and then the QAs need to wait till their chance to test, and then they can only test so fast. And I think as a dev, with all my experience and all that, I've gotten to where I'm just like, either they get to the point where they have to just, the BAs have not fleshed anything out and they just give it to me with no information, and we're just like bumbling along, or QAs, it just gets all backed up in QAs, and then QAs just let things through without testing or whatever. But like, I think I just am way more experienced in all that than all the surrounding things. But I feel like if I was a QA and I was really, really fast, and let's say there's 10 developers, I could just get on top of like everything and get an understanding of everything that like 7 of those developers are doing, and all that. Or I could be building end-to-end testing and stuff like that for it, or something like that. But anyways, so it does not look like things went as well for the meshes. So meshes, though, 40%, that's been pretty good for the ones historically that I would do the F with. All right, so we never call create base mesh. We never get the ID. So yeah, this looks like it's going to be trivial. So something that like the first day was scary is now trivial. So I guess it's easy to get like I'm probably, I was talking about how you got a lot of people divide like developers. I divide developers on 2 things. Yeah, I have 2 different, like when I evaluate, I'm working with a developer, I sort of look at them and I kind of judge them on 2 scales. One, their eliteness, and the other, their expertiseness. So like, and if they're very, very good at both, then I consider them to have mastery. So like, if they're elite, that means that they're probably very good at sort of getting stuff done and sort of maybe even steering you in the right direction, but they're not so great at explaining things. Like when they explain things, they sort of, I don't know, bridge some gaps, kind of make some stuff up and all that. Can't necessarily explain it. If they do explain something, they'll sort of like they'll have some code where they go on and on and on, try to explain what that 2 lines of code do. So that would be an elite developer, someone that can just get shit done. They get shit done, but they can't really quite explain it. Then I know there's like expert developers, and they're people that they can look at any code, explain exactly what's right about it, explain exactly what's wrong about it, talk about it extraordinarily intelligently, and understand and explain to the person who wrote it what it does, especially if that's an elite developer that they're talking to. But they can't get anything done. Like you give them one assignment after another, they never ever get anything done because like they just get caught up in some sort of paralysis through analysis. So that's an expert developer. And then if you're really good at both, you can get stuff done and you explain it, then I consider you a master developer, or that you have mastery of whatever it is you're working on. So most people do divide developers into like 3 groups. I was just talking about them last week, how you have your juniors, and then they're just an absolute pleasure to work with. Juniors are just great. They're puppy dogs, they're just so nice. Then you have your middlings, which they're like teenagers, which they can be so annoying like teenagers. Like you cannot tell them anything. They know everything. They're experts. They know everything. And then you have your senior developers, and your senior developers are generally middling developers that have sort of lived through enough growing pains that they're just like they're kind of just like juniors, where like every line of code takes a lot of analysis, takes a lot of thought. They move a lot. They move slower. They move very slow and steady. They'll often say, this is going to take 2 weeks. And then their middling developer next to them says, oh yeah, I'll have that done at the end of today. A similar project. And then 2 weeks later, the senior's all done. It's all gone through QA. It's all ready to roll. It's all getting ready to go to production. And the middling is like, oh, well, no, we ran across this issue. Oh, we never thought through that issue. They're just constantly just making a lot of excuses on why things haven't moved forward. And I think I'm probably at that middling level in unit testing. Like I'm feeling all this confidence. I can say all the words and all that, but I really don't. I haven't seen enough things to know what mistakes I'm making. So, anyways, I'm going to create a specification by creating an it, by implementing my it function. And I'm going to say, should create a base mesh. Create a base mesh. That's what this should do. And then I'm going to give it a callback function. And that callback function is going to use the service, the material service, though the mesh service, to create a mesh function. So, and it's going to get a mesh ID back, which is going to be a constant. So constant mesh ID is equal to, now this is probably the funnest time of the development cycle, when you kind of finally start, it all comes together, you sort of understand what's going on, you could speak to it, you have a lot of confidence when you're working in it and all that, you know. And then unfortunately very shortly after this comes boredom, like okay, here we go again, we're gonna just create another thing, we're gonna, you know. So I'm savoring this part of this experience. So I've created my mesh ID, so now I would like to get a mesh back, which I believe this is probably called an ST mesh, right? Right? Am I right? Yeah, ST mesh. And I think I like to put the ST in front. So ST, but lowercase. Mesh is of type ST mesh, and it had, like in the previous one, it just brought it in for me. I guess it's not going to be, it's not going to do that for me this time. See, it's so strange how inconsistent these things work, you know, because like literally in the last one, it brought it in for me. It brought the type in for me. And this time, you know, like it didn't even ask, it just did it. And see, sometimes that's blue and sometimes that's yellow. Usually when it's yellow, there's 3 of them, but for some reason there's only 2 of them, and it knows where 2 things are. So it seems like it should be blue. So this is I would rather bring it from the roll-up than from the actual direct file. I don't know why. And then basically I'm going to use an expect to create my assertion. I think those are the right words. And my ST mesh, it has a mesh ID. Oh, it has an ST mesh ID. I like that better. ST mesh ID, and that equal and mesh ID. Seems like a very safe test. It should work. Believe it will rerun. Yep, it reran. Then I can hit this and we good. Now undo this, double check that everything works. And then go back all the way to the top. I don't know that, oh no, let's see it, then it all ran. And then I guess the next one is ST renderer. And I think that's the end of our, no, we got ST scene. So we have ST render and ST scene. And then I think when we get over here, it'll get tricky again. But at this pace, it looks like we'll be all through this second wave of unit testing, probably before the end of the month, probably before the end of next week, hopefully. Hopefully by next Friday, we're all done with this. So, you know, maybe I can even check to make sure that, double check that the end-to-end tests are working. And then maybe on Saturday, I'll get to focus on trying to get the resizing, the auto resizing working, which then I think will probably be the very, 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 very first time that we can actually make a Cypress test that is cool. Because I think a Cypress test that sort of resizes these and we get to see them sort of redo, I think that might be that will be pretty cool. And I think it might be cool enough to be the first sort of LinkedIn test of, hey, look what I could do with Cypress and ThreeJS, you know, and then, and then from there, like I think there'll be more cool stuff to come very shortly after that. But while we're here, how far in are we? We're only 20 minutes in, so that's not too bad. The next one is render. So let's see, because for some strange reason I did material, maybe render. Maybe render is already done too. Looks like renderer might already be done. So that is good. So let's do our F describe. Now we are starting to see like sort of a pattern here. Like when I hit save on this, it will do all this stuff here in the screen, but then it won't actually rerun. So when you go from F to not F, it will rerun. But when you go from not F to F, it won't rerun. So that's an interesting thing. I think we're good though. It looks like on the renderer. Looks like that'll probably stay. Oh, no, that was 100. 100. So we're good on renderer. Good for you. Let's see. Scene. And so scene's 100 with just the renderer. Oh man, the renderer, yeah, tests all kinds of stuff, which I guess makes sense. Okay, ST render. That's this guy right here. He ended up testing everything. Let's try ST scene. So now we know that when we undo this, it will in fact rerun everything. And we'll reload, and then we'll go to scene, and we might be done with ST today. Nope. And so let's F describe scene. See what happens. I think we know it won't rerun on its own. So we'll rerun. Oh no, it did rerun. Man, I don't know. I don't know. So ST scene had one branch that never got ran. So this one might be. This one might be a little harder because it's got this thing in there. So let's do the basic. Let's do the basic. So that means tomorrow, if maybe we could just focus on trying to figure out how to get this branch, which may cause a rewrite of stuff. So this one might have got us. Took one to the knee. So let's do our basic. Create a spec. We will give it its first argument, which is the description. So it should create a base scene, comma. And I did want to mention that, like in my 3J, if you look at my other channel or my other playlist where I'm working on voice, the voice API, like I spent like the last 2 weeks just playing around with discrete voice and just trying different languages and playing around with it. And now today I dove back into actual coding again. When you're actually coding, you can't really, that takes enough of your brain up that you can't really think about the overall mission. So I was no longer thinking about voice itself, I was thinking about code. But now this takes it to a whole nother level, right? So when I'm in 3JS, there's a part where I'm thinking about 3D things and cubes and different sorts of things that you might want to see and lighting and stuff like that. And then there's when you're thinking about 3JS code, which is a whole layer. And now, okay, now I'm not even thinking about 3JS code. I'm thinking about unit tests. So I'm 2 layers away from even putting any mind into there. But so anyway, so const, and we know it's a number, and it is going to be our scene ID. And we're going to say service, because that's the one we do. And this is all stuff that I've really learned in just the last couple of weeks. Now we're going to create an ST scene. service dot get scene by ID. So now we're going to get the scene that we wanted, and scene ID. And now we're going to run that, and it ran, and we're going to reload. 100. So we did manage to get in there. I don't care. I don't care why. It doesn't matter to me. So now we're just going to actually create our assertion by creating using the expect function. And the first thing we're going to say is that st scenes dot st scene ID is equal to the scene ID to equal. And I feel like what I used to do, like in my early videos, what I used to do is I would practice this over and over again. I would do something like this over and over again off camera. And once I got it down to a science, I would make a video. I would make like a 5 to 10 minute video showing how to do something. And I thought that, I think that's perfectly fine. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. And I think that that's way more entertaining, and that if I had to continue to do that, I would have a lot more subscribers than I do. But I do think that it is a bit of a disservice to the industry and to the future and to people watching, because it gives the false impression that anybody just codes like that, or like I've coded in this video, where I just like, oh, okay, and now you just do this, and now you just do that. That happens. You do get like that. You get to where you do something all the time, and you feel very comfortable doing it, and you feel very stimulated, and you get like a lot of endorphins, and it's fun. But that is not the majority of the time. That is not how it normally works. The way it normally works is you bang your head against the wall. Now, if you can get the hang of using AI can really make it to where you spend a little bit more time just coding and having fun, and a little less time banging your head against the wall. Maybe even a lot more time, and a lot of times less. And there's a lot to be said for that, and you could probably get a lot done and all that, and that's good. And because I was thinking the other day while I was mowing the lawn, I was like, when I first started, I remember when I first started at Boeing in 1996. That was my first job out of college. I was a systems engineer, and we would have arguments that would go for months about like if India is bigger than China, if just regular facts like if Africa is a continent, or if there's a country named Africa in the world. We might argue about something like that for months until. But then Google came out, and we would be like, now you can just look it up. And the thing was I think that people got along better back then. And the reason we got along better is because, like, honestly, 90%, 99% of the things people argue about don't freaking matter. So, like, people might get really, really mad at each other. Like, you'd be like, no, there is a country called Africa. No, it's just a continent. I know it's a continent, but in that continent, there's a country called Africa. And it's like, no, there's not a country called Africa. Yes, there is. And then, okay, here's a map of Africa I just found in an encyclopedia. Well, no, so there's a country somewhere else called Africa. And then, and you guys might even hate each other at the end of the day because of that. But then, like, eventually maybe your boss or some other older person, or maybe some younger person, but some other person will be like, who freaking cares? Does it really matter? And you'd be like, you know what? It doesn't. It doesn't really matter. And we kind of got to learn that. Now, I don't think we get to that point until the arguments are really nasty and just deep crap that we probably shouldn't even know about each other. What kind of animals do you think people should be eating, or what kind of, like crap like that, and you start with these like hardcore subjects, and then now it's harder for people to get along. And I noticed that, like, people just don't talk. Like, it's if you have to go into the office and all that, there'll be a very, 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 like a lot of people just don't talk to each other at all, don't say anything all day long because, like we just can't get along. And I think it's because you didn't get practice on those lower, easier things. And I'm wondering if that might happen to a lot of developers that use like ChatGPT. Like if there might be some stuff that they know, some sort of, I don't know, some sort of skill that we're not aware of that they will never get to develop because they never just had to bang their head against the wall for hours and hours and hours trying to figure out something. I don't know. But anyways, it looks like we're all done with the and all the ST unit testing. So tomorrow it looks like we will be starting on, let's see, I would rather probably do it in the order of this. So it looks like we will be starting on 3 camera, and we'll see if 3 camera is. And I'm just curious now because, honestly, like it's just a lot easier to sleep and stuff if you know kind of what you're getting into. So if I turn this into an F, okay, is it going to reload and rerun or not? Not. See, oh yes, it did. It did rerun. So it ran one test and we only have 20%. So we are going to have to figure out this. It looks like this is going to be the same sort of thing. It's like all we have to do is create it. Looks like setting the position is the thing. So we might have to, we'll have to run that. So we'll probably create one test, one spec test spec for that handles create camera and get camera by ID, and then probably another one that will create a camera and then give it a position. And then I guess we'll check to see if the ID of the one we got back is the one that we sent or something like that. Who knows? But anyways, it looks like that one won't be too bad. So starting tomorrow, we will be starting on the 3 camera. So hopefully by the end of next week, we're all done with all of these. And we'll be able to get started on resizing. So whenever you resize, you don't have to do this and then reload so that it redraws in this way and then come back like it just happens on its own. Anyways, I hope everybody's having a wonderful Easter. It is 1:20 p.m. My kids, well, my son and his wife and my daughter-in-law and their best friend will be coming over in 2 hours and 39 minutes. Let's see, what is the temperature outside? It's saying the temperature is supposed to drop next Tuesday. But it's 81 degrees out there, so it's probably supposed to feel like 85. Looks like it's supposed to rain next Tuesday. It's supposed to get a low of 59 degrees Fahrenheit, which is nothing. And my plants are going to love getting the rain. Looks like I won't be mowing on that day. But who knows? Anyways, everybody, happy coding. Bye.